Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I feel like it's been a minute since we've recorded together. We've done a bunch of solo shows recently.
Right. But we've seen each other a lot, which makes it different because usually if we wouldn't record, we wouldn't see each other. But now we've seen each other, but not recorded. Very tricky.
That is true. We've hung out like the last 2 weekends, but
Yeah.
we weren't recording because of those activities.
Right.
But we are back and we have an exciting show because we are welcoming back Bethany to the show. Bethany, how are we today?
Good. Thank you guys for having me back. This is so exciting. I love this.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you back and especially talk and dig into the food and your thoughts on that. Bethany is very well known in the Disney community for her food critiques.
Yes, to say the least.
Well, Bethany, why don't you tell us a little bit about the sailing you booked?
Yeah, I booked, I don't know, I feel like it's like a last minute thing. I booked this like a month out. I booked 4 nights on the Dream, headed to Nassau and Castaway. So I had never been on the Dream before. The Dream and the Magic were my 2 ships that were left. And when I saw this opportunity at the price for like the guaranteed rate, I was like, oh, yes, I will book this. So 4 nights on the Dream, Nassau and Castaway. So a good little itinerary and a day at sea.
I love a guarantee rate. Well, before we get into that, you did do a couple days in Disney World. Tell us just a little bit about that trip.
Yeah, I did a while down in Disney, but 2 days before I had my mom fly in because my mom joined me on this trip. We were staying over at Port Orleans Riverside, took her and did a few things like cake bake. We did the dessert party at California Grill. I kind of like showed her a good Disney experience. And then from there, I went back and forth. Obviously, this one leaves from Fort Lauderdale and we were in Orlando. So I went back and forth of how we were going to get down there. And I looked at everything. Like I looked at flights, I looked at driving and settled on the Brightline.
Which package of the Brightline did you book?
I booked the like mid-tier one. So it wasn't premium, but it wasn't the saver fare. It was like the mid-tier where you got to like pick your seat. I'm not you don't get to select your seat kind of person. I need to pick my seat.
No original Southwest for you.
No.
So how did you, I guess, find the Brightline experience?
I actually really loved it. I was really nervous because I decided to take it the morning of the cruise, which I know like everybody's like, you need to be wherever you need to be the night before. And I was like, look, if all fails, I had my friend who was like, I'll drive you. It's not a big deal. So I was like, all right, well, I'll take it. So booked the 750 Brightline, which got us down to Fort Lauderdale at 10:35. So it wasn't that bad. I think I paid $248 round trip for both of us. I ended up on Reddit, somebody was like, you need to sign up for their emails because they give really good, like discounted rates because it's expensive. When I first looked at it, it was almost $500 for a round trip. And I was like, that just seems like a bit much. But I ended up getting it for $248 round trip. But it was flawless. Like they dropped us off. We took an Uber from Port Orleans to the Brightline station. You literally go up an escalator. It's there. Security is the easiest thing. You put your bag on the belt, you walk through, and it takes 2 seconds. Waited, had breakfast. My mom had a coffee. I had a mimosa. And then like 10 minutes before your train, they say, get on. We had a lot of luggage because I had done almost 2 weeks in Disney beforehand. So we had 2 big suitcases and a carry-on. And it was so easy. They have like luggage racks. You can put things above your seat. So I found the overall experience so nice. Sat down there and then worked for the like almost 3 hours that it took to get us down there.
Christy and I still keep talking about wanting to try the Brightline experience, but overall, I think we've heard pretty positive remarks from guests that have been on the show and used it. And honestly, that time frame is very comparable to what you'd spend driving if you don't hit traffic. So for me to not have to drive that sounds like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only thing that I still have in the back of my mind is that when my husband had to take the Brightline for work, he said that the guy next to him was watching the news out loud for the entirety of his journey, the one way. And then on the way back, it was like something equally ridiculous. And I think I would go crazy. I need really good headphones or to be in my own car bubble.
I was just going to say, I don't think it's well patrolled as like an airline. Like, you know, if you're watching something without headphones on an airline, they're like, headphones in, please. Here, they're just kind of like, whatever. It is definitely more casual and relaxed in that sense.
Yeah.
Well, we get to Fort Lauderdale and we head towards the ship. How did we get from the terminal to the station to the terminal, I should say?
Took an Uber again. It was boat show week, which apparently like Fort Lauderdale has the biggest boat show in, I don't know. I want to say he was like the world. And I was like, okay, but maybe. So we took an Uber. That actually took a while. The traffic was horrendous. So from going to the Brightline to there, it took about an hour, which was not the estimate like when I opened the Uber app. So we got there at 10:35, sat down. My mom had another coffee. And then we finally took, I would say around like 11:35, we took an Uber. My port arrival time was 12, and we did not get to the terminal until about 12:25-ish. So it took almost an hour to get there. And on the way back, it was short. It was like 20 minutes. So it was just clearly like a traffic thing. And I think the boat show did not help, but it wasn't a bad Uber ride at all.
Awesome. So it is your first time on the Dream, trying to finish up that Grand Slam. How was the embarkation process for you?
It was truly awful. I've gone out of San Diego before. I've done other things. This was not organized. I will give Disney credit. They were coming off the transatlantic. Like this was the first cruise off of it. So the earliest port arrival time for concierge was 11:45. So I think that there was like a lot that had to happen. And from what I had heard is they actually had to have the entire crew get off and go through customs because they didn't board in America. So everything was delayed. By the time we got there at 12:30, we actually like went up and our port arrival time hadn't been called yet to go in. So it was late. Went to the back of the line. It was just like a really big cluster of people because it's in the parking garage there. And they have the lines of like, if you're 12 o'clock, you wait here. If you're 1 o'clock, you wait here. But there were so many people. I got to the back of the line and it's not even 12:30 yet. I got to the back of the line and was talking to the people around me. And the woman next to me was like, yeah, my port arrival time is 1 p.m. And the guy standing next to me was like, mine's 1:45. And I was like, this is why this is a dumpster fire right now. So I ended up walking forward and blessed the random woman that was waiting because she was like, if you're 12 o'clock, they're taking you right now. And we were able to walk right in. And once we got in, it was like smooth sailing. We went right through check-in, right through security. And we did have to wait a while till boarding was called. And I knew that was going to happen because you can kind of see concierge when you walk in. And they weren't on the ship, like their little, lounge. They were still there. And I was like, all right, it's going to be a while. And we finally got on board around 1:15.
Wow.
So it took a while.
So good note to watch it if you are taking a cruise after a transatlantic.
They just have a lot to process. And I think they had problems with debarkation anyway. And then they had to get the entire crew off. So I think it took forever for them. So I don't really feel like it was Disney's fault per se, but there was no communication of like, maybe you shouldn't show up at your port arrival time because you shouldn't have. Like they were an hour behind. It was definitely crazy. And if that were my first experience, I would be like, wow, this is wild. But I've been on so many other ones that I'm like, I know this is like the anomaly. This is the one-off. Right. But the Facebook group they needed to be tamed after that. Because I always love being in my Facebook group for my sailing, but they were very angry about it. But I was like, I'm on board the Dream, so I'm fine now.
So did you notice or did you know what changes they made to the public spaces of the ship during the dry dock?
So the only really noticeable 2 spots were the cantina that has obviously changed, and we got a cantina, and then the concierge sun deck, because that took half of like the starboard forward side away. But besides that, I think all the changes, like a lot of them were concierge lounge. So I wasn't in there, so I didn't see that. But I know they had said, I had heard beforehand that they were going to do some things to the spa, didn't notice anything, and they didn't point out anything. Like I did a full spa tour when I got on, and they didn't point out anything, which I kind of think they would have if there was something big. So really, besides the cantina and that like sun deck area, you couldn't tell anything different.
And no changes to the room as far as plugs or anything like that. Okay.
Well, while we're talking about that, what kind of room did you book?
The guaranteed veranda, which is what I booked on the Fantasy last time we talked. And I ended up in room 7540. So that's forward on the starboard side. And it was about 5 doors down from the room I had on the Fantasy. So
you love it. It's a perfect area.
It is. It's nice. It's like if you leave the Walt Disney Theater after a show, you can walk up to your room because it's not like you're walking up 10 flights of stairs. It's only a few. So I booked a guaranteed veranda. I had that. It was plenty of space. We didn't have a family one. We just had the normal size. Like we didn't get upgraded in that little bit, but it was absolutely perfect because it was just me and my mom sailing.
When you travel with your mom, Did we talk about this last time? Do you guys share the bed or does one of you? Okay.
I'm like, I'm not sleeping on that comfy bed.
For the listeners who may not know, other cruise lines divide the bed in half. Disney does not have an option to divide the bed in half. The queen is the queen. But you could ask for separate blankets. Like my husband, for example, does not use the comforter and he wants one sheet and I want every blanket. So actually, one of our room stewards actually just started making the bed in half, where he did half one sheet and half all of my blankets. If you are traveling and you each want your own blankets, Disney will do that.
That's nice. And I mean, they're wonderful. The second I have every single time that I've cruised with my mom, the second I see the room steward, he'll be like, do you want me to make up the bed every night? And then we're like, no, it's fine. No one wants to sleep on the couch if we're really being honest.
Yeah.
So give us a comfy bed. But that's good to know for the future.
Okay.
Well, turning it back towards the dream in general, it sounds like you have an affinity for the fantasy, which we have talked about before. What are our thoughts on the dream then?
I thought I was going to like it more than I did. And it's not that I didn't love it. I just am like hardcore. I love the fantasy. It's my favorite ship I've been on. And everybody told me that the thing that was going to persuade me to love the dream more was the adult area, switching from Europa to the district. And I just feel like Europa is so much more connected. It's cohesive. I was like, the district to me, while I love things, like I loved pink. I liked the whole vibe. I was like, I feel like I'm in a champagne bottle in here. I like Europa so much more on the fantasy. But overall, like I love the dream. It's just, it felt like home, even though I'd never been there because I've been on the fantasy so many times. I'm like, oh, I know where I'm going. Because, being sister ships, it's so easy to navigate it. But I did find myself missing certain aspects of the fantasy adult area because I definitely like it more. But I did like the district and I did love pink. I think I like it better than Ooh La La. It's like, it's just like, you want to talk about a cocoon. I feel like I was in a cocoon there and I was like, play me piano all night long.
Yeah, pink is definitely a little bit louder compared to Ooh La La in its theming, which is kind of funny when you think about the theming between the two because I do consider the fantasy also superior when you consider the carousel bar and just like how grand that is walking into. But overall, yeah, I would put the fantasy above the dream as well, as I think a lot of people would and a lot of our listeners would.
We know my opinion. I always think the fantasy edges out.
I agree. And the district lounge is just like D-lounge, but down the hallway. Like, it's so boring.
Yeah.
I mean, I played a lot of trivia in there, but I was like, compared to walking into that carousel, it is not as grand.
Well, turning it back to our embarkation day, we get aboard. What is our first go-to for a meal?
It was the new cantina.
And what's the review?
I had to. Okay. I felt long and hard about how I would compare this. I was so excited. Loved Donald's Cantina on the Wish. And so get up there and have you ever been to like a Chili's to go at the airport? But like, it's still Chili's. Do you know what I mean? You're getting your chips and salsa, but like your fajitas aren't coming out sizzling, but it's still the same thing. That's the comparison. It is like the Chili's to go of Donald's Cantina. So you're still getting the food that like you really loved on the Wish, but not as much. So there's not as many options. Like meat wise, it was chicken or beef. And I believe the Wish has pork as well. And then like sauce wise, there's no extravagant sauce bar. You have like 2 choices and then a few squeeze bottles of sauce. Overall, the food was good. And they don't do burritos. They do burritos on the Wish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just taco and taco bowl. So it's like, that's why I think it's like the Chili's to go. It's still there. I still love a Chili's to go, but it's not as grand as the one on the Wish. But it was such a like welcome addition. I had it a few times. It was definitely interesting too, because a few days it didn't say it was open, like on the navigator. It wasn't listed, but it was open. I overall loved it. I loved it on the Wish. I love it on the Dream. I hope it comes to every ship because I love my Chipotle at sea.
See, Chili's is on my banned list. So when you compare something to a Chili's, I'm not really getting... Nope, can't do it.
Wait, what did Chili's do to you, Lake?
Exactly. But it's a lesser version, but it still has the same like backbone and components of it. And I loved it. And I think it was a great addition. But like when you're used to the one on the Wish and then you go to this one, you're like, I feel like it's missing a few things.
So did they add, where is it in the lineup?
There used to be 2 burger spots, I think. And then the sandwiches. So I think there used to be 2 walk-up windows where you could get like burgers and fries and all that. And they just changed one to the cantina. And then the, healthier option of like sandwiches and salads is still at the end.
Okay.
So I think a good addition though.
Yeah.
So then are we sail away party people or what did we get up to after?
we are sail away party people. And it's a cute sail away. That was the other upgrade that they actually had on the Dream, is they have screens now instead of the tarp that's behind the immediate stage. Like it looks like it's the Wish now, and it's gorgeous and better than the tarps. No one's mad at it. So throughout the cruise that was there, but we went to the sail away party. I absolutely am a sucker for the Disney horn. I'll cry every single time it happens. And then we did, after the sail away party, go back to the room, because we usually always go and sit on the veranda to watch sail away. And we did not leave Port Canaveral at that time, though. That's where our first issue we ran into started.
Well, what happened there?
We were back from a sail away party, and there was an announcement over the loudspeaker that said red parties, red parties, red parties. And it was like, this is not a drill, but this is for crew only. And it was like deck 2, the garbage room, stay off the I-95. And I was like, well, that can't be good. So let me Google it. And red parties is fire on board Disney Cruise Line. And as we continued that evening, we found out there was really a fire. So that's why I like to call it the dumpster fire, because it was in the garbage room. So we got an announcement not too long after the sail away party that was in fact a true announcement, and there was a fire. We hadn't been cleared to sail yet, and our cruise director Anthony came on and kept us up to date on everything and said we would sail around 8:30. So it was like, okay, now we can just go explore the ship some more in between the time period where we usually would sit there and watch sail away and then go to the show. So
I mean, you weren't going very far either.
No, we were going to NASA. Yeah,
from Fort Lauderdale isn't a very far journey.
No.
So then that night, did the shops or anything that would usually open once you get out to sea open?
They did, yes, because we finally took off around 9:30, and they were scheduled to be open till 11. So once we left at 9:30, they opened up. So we were able to go and do some shopping. I did some good damage on this cruise.
As we should.
Did I buy the matching sweatsuit now? And now I'm wearing the matching sweatsuit? Yes. Is it too much? Yes. I showed up to something the other day and I was like, I look like Gonzo. Why did I buy this? I bought a lot of hats for the whole crew, because my dad's a retired cast member. So my mom has a spouse pass, so she gets the cast member discount, and it went to Holiday while we were there. So 40% off. I was like, swipe it.
All right. So dining. Well, I guess before we go to dining, I assume you're second dining people.
Yes.
And did you go to the show first?
We did. It was the Golden Mickeys.
And what did you think?
I had seen it on the Wonder and I loved it. My mother adored it. I think she cried the whole time. She said after we saw the Golden Mickey, she said that's her favorite show she's ever seen on Disney Cruise Line.
Wow.
I said that's a bold choice.
That is a bold
that.
choice. Wait, has she not seen Seize the Adventure?
She has.
Well, that's the wrong choice.
I know.
Okay, so is Iger still in it?
No, which I was truly floored, because last time I went on the Wonder was 2022. It was October 2022. Iger was still in it. And then we made a joke. We were like, haha, funny. Now, they're going to have to replace him. And then a month later, he came back. And we were like, well, problem solved. But they just cut his whole part.
Oh, I was going to ask next. What did they do about that? Okay, so then dining. Where did you have dining that first night?
We were at Animator's Palette.
Okay.
So honestly, the best meal, the best rotational dining I had on this cruise. Like I said, we came off the transatlantic, and I think the quality of food at some places had a lot to do with that. Mm-hmm. And still being on that European food distribution of different distributors, because some of the food was rough. However, Animator's Palette was a grand slam. Got the pasta purses, as one does. And then the pork chop, which I did not love last time. The pork chop was so good. Perfectly cooked. It was juicy. It had that. It has the breadcrumbs on top. So they were perfectly golden. That was one of the best meals we had on this cruise period. I absolutely loved Animator's Palette on night one. And our servers were great. We had Richie and Philippa, and she was British and so cute. And this was her first time in America. So we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. But they made it better. And that meal was perfection. It was Crush night. So Crush was coming around, which I think my mom was happy she didn't have to draw, because she's always like, why do you force me to draw every single time? And I was like, because we're on a fun cruise. We're having fun. But that was a great meal. Animator's Palette was absolutely phenomenal.
What did we get up to going to the evening?
We actually went back to the room for a while, because after dinner is when we sailed away. So we went back to the room for a while, watched just kind of take off and watched everything in the distance. And then we actually went down to Pink again for piano time. I'm a sucker for live music every single night. My mother was like on a first name basis with the piano player. She was like, hey girl. And by the end of the cruise, ironically too, the other piano player we had on here he was on the Wish when I was on the Wish back in February. And we had actually met his mom in the adult only area. Like we were sitting in the pool and she was like, my son Ellis is actually the piano player. And he was our piano player again. So it was kind of funny that I was like, your mom's adorable, by the way. She loves you. But
That's
yeah,
cute.
just closed the night out with some piano music there and then went to bed, even though we did gain an hour that night, which was lovely. It's the way to do it. I mean, that's pretty much us every single night is like we go to good live music. So
that is us as well. Well, we wake up the next day and we are sailing into Nassau. I'm going to go out on a hunch here and say you did not care about Nassau. And did we sprinkle in some specialty dining this day?
We did. I did not get off the ship. I did it last time and I was like, unless I'm doing an excursion, this isn't my jam. And I actually was able to manage to get a brunch for that day. That was the only day they were doing Palo brunch. And I booked late, like I booked a month out and it was completely sold out. And I am just that person that will be on the internet 24/7 checking, and check-in night actually at like 3 a.m. East Coast time. So I live on the West Coast. So it was like midnight. It was finally when I clicked it, it was like choose a time. And I was like, yes. So we did Palo for brunch that morning when we were in Nassau, which was so funny because I think I sent you a photo where if you look like one way, like my view was like staring at the Royal Caribbean, like the rock climbing wall. But my mother had this like beautiful view of Atlantis. Like just the angle of the table was just hilarious. So like where she had this gorgeous view and I was like staring at the ship next to us. I think that's the only downfall of when you go to Palo in Nassau is like you're so jam-packed with other ships there, unlike some other spots, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That picture was funny. It was like the tale of two dinners or two brunches. You know, like we haven't talked about this. I have a cruise coming up in March and I did check in for Pearl a week ago or something. And I missed the check-in because I forgot to remind Dave and I don't stay up till midnight. And so I didn't check in, but it was make my activities. So I did them at like 8 a.m. There was no Palo brunch for this 4-night fantasy cruise for Pearl check-in. It was already sold out. Like it may have existed at midnight, but it didn't exist at 8 a.m. Palo's getting intense. It's getting cabana level apparently.
So my meal was awful. Please don't go. No, I'm kidding. It was so good, but it was the opposite.
You had a fabulous meal. What do you get at Palo?
I always get a Mickey waffle because it's the only place I like. I mean, Disney Cruise Line, I guess, is the only place I love Mickey waffles, but I got the apple cinnamon one. I was like, it's fall now. It was lovely. I also tried, I had never had it before, the grape blue cheese and like red wine reduction pizza. Delicious. That was really good. It's not on the menu, but if you ask your server, we had Victor from the Dominican Republic and he was like, no, you can't have that. Just kidding. Yes, you can. And then I am always a sucker for the chicken parm too. The chicken parm is like one of my favorite things there over that like risotto. It is so good. Oh. So that's like usually our staples. And then just a good amount of balsamic grande. I'll drink a few of those at brunch every single time because I love it. They did change the recipe. It's a little different than it used to be, but it's still delicious. The calzone too.
Oh.
I took that entire calzone myself. I was like, absolutely. Yes, this is my favorite. It's so good. Like peppers and every type of like Italian meat possible is in there. Prosciutto, everything. It was so good.
People sleep on the Palo brunch breakfast items, but that is still to date the best waffle of my life.
It's so good. It's good.
Waffle.
It's good. I mean, I've had like the eggs, like not on this one. I've had the omelets and the eggs Benedict, and I'm not an eggs person, and I think they're amazing. Like that's how good of a job I feel like they do with so many things there.
So Palo brunch, a hit, as it usually is.
Yeah, we were there probably almost like 3.5 hours.
That checks out.
I like that.
We've been there.
I was like, no rush, and we're in Nassau, so what are we going to do? Like, I'm not going to get off the ship afterwards, which, like, we were in port till late. I want to say we were in port till 6, so there was plenty of time, but, you know, plenty of time to explore the ship then.
Well, we get out of Palo, we take some time to digest. How did we fill the rest of your quote-unquote day at sea?
I did a good amount of trivia. I'm determined to win trivia, and that didn't happen on this cruise, but, you know, one day I'll win. It's also hard if I cruise with my mom because she is like, I always say she's like a body, not a mind when we're sitting at trivia because she's there. She's not helping. I love her dearly. She knows this. She's like, I know nothing. So did trivia. And then the other thing I did was pin trading that day. I probably spent like an hour and a half walking around pin trading on other people's doors. My Facebook group, somebody had posted like a list of all the doors that would have pin traders. And I like got into pin trading, I don't know, the week before I was in Disney World. So I was like, now's the time to do it. So we did a lot of pin trading, which was fun. And I found some really good pins around Disney cruise ships. So I was kind of really impressed. I expected them all to be kind of like meh, but I found some really good ones. So did that. And then I also started what I'm calling the dirty crawl, where I was on the search for the best dirty martini on the ship. And so started in Skyline because I felt like that's a high standard to set. And it was. Skyline had a very good dirty martini. Nur, who was my bartender, he like muddled olives into my dirty martini. My mother, who doesn't drink, loved it. She took 3 sips and I was like, it's concerning that you like the dirty martini, but I'm here for this. So we started our dirty crawl that continued throughout. And then we just hung out on like Satellite Falls for probably 2 or 3 hours, just sat at one of the tables up there at the front of the ship and started to watch all the other ships pull out. So it was kind of just like we just sat there and chatted about life and enjoyed watching all the other ships maneuver their way out of that little area that is Nassau.
You mentioned earlier that some of Satellite Falls was lost to the concierge lounge. Did you feel that difference? Because like for me, somebody mentioned that, it's taken away space. Anytime I would pop out into Satellite Falls, I feel like the whole half of that ship would be empty anyway.
No, it was like when we got up there, which was probably, I want to say like 4 o'clock, we were essentially one of 5 people that were sitting out on that entire area. And like we were in port, it was sunny out. There was no reason for people not to be out there, but nobody was. And that was kind of the thing. Even when we stayed out there till almost 7 o'clock. And around that time, we were the only people out there, like the only people. There was no one out there that entire time. Like, granted, there was a show going on that night. I think Believe was happening that night. We chose to skip it because we've seen it before, but it was empty. And every time I went up there was plenty of like seats everywhere. I never found that to be a problem, even though they did take away half the area, but not a problem. But yeah, enjoyed that. We were supposed to leave at 6. And we're like, okay, we'll pace this out so we can go get ready for dinner. And I was like, why aren't we leaving? Everybody else has left. And that's when I realized we did have a medical emergency on board because all the officers were like down the gangway and there was an ambulance. So that was our first of 2 medical emergencies. I hope everybody is okay because that was kind of the trend on this. There was something that happened like every single night. And so that night we did pull out later. We were at dinner. So it was like, I think we'd just gotten to dinner when we pulled out. So it was like 8. So we were a few hours late leaving the port again. But we were only headed to Castaway the next day, which wasn't far. So I give Disney Cruise Line so much credit because even though we had all these issues of like fires or medical emergencies, we made our ports every single day on time. So I can't complain at that point. Everything worked out perfect. So
where was dinner this night?
Dinner this night was at Enchanted Garden.
We love Enchanted Garden. What did you think?
I didn't love it this time. I know. We got like the lobster ravioli. Everything just tasted really fishy. It just wasn't. The sea bass was good. I will say that. And the other thing that disappointed me was the lasagna wasn't on the menu. And I guess that's like a specific night that they probably do it. But the vegetable lasagna that I had there last time was the best lasagna I've ever had. I loved it so much. And it wasn't on the menu, but the sea bass was really, really good. We did fight over that. I mean, we could have ordered another one, but we didn't fight over that because we typically just order like a bunch of different appetizers and then a few entrees and split it. And the sea bass was easily the favorite of the group. That is so light and delicious and was really good, despite the rest of the meal being like, meh, which was disappointing because I love Enchanted Garden.
Were you seated with other people?
We were supposed to be. Night 1, it was the 2 of us. I had requested a private table because I vlog, so I don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. And I was like, well, everybody's about to have a voiceover because I'm not going to sit here and ruin someone else's dinner. So night 1, when we arrived, it was set up for 4 people. And Philippa, our assistant server, was so excited. She's like, oh my God, strangers at the same table. I love this so much. But by night 2, they were gone. Like the things had been removed. So I guess we scared them away.
Did they ever show up then? They didn't show up?
No. And then from night 2 on, they didn't even like set them a place at the table. So obviously something had like shifted if they wanted a different meal or, time or whatever.
What did you get into after dinner?
I don't even think I think we just like literally went and listened to piano music and then called it a night. We are such creatures of habit. Like you won't find us at, we did go and see piano again. This is when my mom fell in love with the piano girl that was playing. We're not like silent disco people or anything. I like to kind of be to bed early, especially because the next day we had Castaway and I wanted to be off during All Ashore. So we did go and listen to some piano music and then called it a night.
All right. Well, then that brings us into beautiful Castaway. Not your first rodeo on this island. How was our day?
Amazing. I love Castaway. I think it's such a great stop. All Ashore was at 8:30 and we had like prepped and got ready to have breakfast before we got off because there is no food on Castaway until like 11:30. So I knew I had to feed my mom before we left and we were off at 8:30. I started this the last cruise I did where I start the morning at the family beach by the cabanas. Like if you go past the sandbar, like that bar that's out there is typically no one over there. It is empty because I think people think it's the cabanas, so they don't venture to that side of the sandbar. And we were able to go and sit in the water for like 3 hours and just enjoy how beautiful it was. Again, we were adults only on this cruise, but I do like the family beach at that time. I think it's a little more well-groomed and you're like staring at the ship. It's really pretty. There's a lot to see. There's a lot going on. And then around a little after 11, we decided let's head over to the adult beach because it started to get crazy. The kids were playing like football in the water and I was like, that's my cue. That's my cue to go to the adults only area. So spent the morning there and it was so nice. And then moved over to the adults only area. And we didn't even really go on the beach this time. We just sat at the bar with the Adirondack chairs there and enjoyed that for a bit. And then we actually decided to skip the barbecue there and go back to the ship instead.
Did you have more Donald's Cantina?
Oh, you better believe I did. I was like, we could eat a burger or we could go get Cantina. And that's what we went and did. And we ended up going back and actually staying on the ship, which we had been in the water for such a long period of time. So I felt like we kind of had a good day. But we had bought the rainforest passes before the cruise. So I was like, this is our prime time to go to the rainforest room. Everybody's off the ship in Castaway right now. We had tried to go the day before a few times and it was so crowded. Like there were no loungers opened. The hot tubs were completely full. So I was like, this is our time. So we like got ready and we went up there and we were the only people in the rainforest room. So they have like 10 of those heated stone loungers. We just sat there and laid there for a while. And then got in the hot tub. And on Castaway days, it's perfect in those hot tubs because it's those open air like windows that are looking out onto Castaway. So we were just sitting in the hot tub, her and I by ourselves. I was like, this is a private experience that I have never loved anything more. My mother loved it. So that to me was worth the price of the rainforest room. That's the only time we really utilized it because it had been so crowded the other days. But I loved it for what it was on Castaway.
Castaway is easily the best day to take advantage of the rainforest room. Of course, most people will elect to go to Castaway, which is why it's so empty. But yes, I have spent hours in there on a Castaway day with just no one else to bother you or take up any other space or equipment. It is lovely.
Exactly. It was so perfect that the day before I was like, am I going to regret spending this money? Because it was like $100 a person and it was only a 4-day cruise. And I was like, our last day is our day at sea. So that's going to be crazy too. And it was so worth it for the day that we did it on Castaway. It was so worth it.
Well, people start getting back on the ship. What did we get into in the evening? Did we do the show?
We didn't do the show because it was pirate night. So we did the pirate show. But before we got to the show, I made my mother an appointment at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique to get a pirate makeover.
Right. Oh.
Yes, I did. I said to her before this cruise, I was like, look, will you do it? Because that is the only night adults can do Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. It is open to like anyone over the age of, I think, 3 or whatever. So that's the only night you can actually be an adult and do it. And I had a friend that did it when she was in Europe. And I was like, I have to make my mom do it. This is going to be amazing. So we went into Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, which was the Pirate League at that point, and taken over. They were amazing. I think they were so excited that and like I was the child bringing in my mother. I was like the opposite, like even sitting on the couches when she was getting a makeover, it was like all the parents sitting on the couches watching their kids in the chair. And then it was like the kid watching the parent. My mom is a good sport, or should I say Mary Bad Bones, because that's her pirate name she was given. So I called her Mary all night long.
If you could see Lake's face for the people listening right now, he is dying, literally losing his mind.
Literally, Linda was her pirate makeover person, and she just kept saying bad bones to her all night. Mm-hmm. I had so much fun doing it that it was totally worth it just for my own entertainment. But my mom had a great time. They let her pick her makeup. Like, I really wanted her to be a zombie pirate. And she said no. She's like, we have to go to Palo tonight. And I was like, valid. But the people at Palo, we have the same server. He would love you if you came dressed like a pirate zombie. But it was like 30-minute experience and we had a blast. She had a whole like swearing in ceremony at the end that was fun. They did her like makeup. They gave her a fake tattoo, but it also came with like a decent amount of accessories that I was kind of impressed with. She got this like really nice like drawstring bag that she had a bandana and an eye patch and a fake earring and a necklace. There was a lot of accessories to it for like, I bought the basic package. They were like, do you want to upgrade? And I was like, I'm sorry, do we have sizes in adults that I didn't know about? But she had a good time doing it. And there's like a video of her at the end where I was like, say arg, and she starts singing A Pirate's Life for me. Can't take direction, but is having fun. And I love that. So that was a good way to kick off our Pirates night, was taking her to Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. And it was like the one way I could actually get in there as an adult. So
that is amazing. Lake, I could actually see your mom doing the pirate makeover if you asked her to.
Oh, she would totally be talked into it.
Yeah.
This is so great. This is like my favorite 3 minutes of any podcast recording. Mary Bad Bones.
Mary Bad Bones. I mean, it's so much that she had so much fun doing it. So it was so worth it. And she was such a good sport with it. My mom is down for like anything. She'll be like, okay, sure. And she was like, will you do it with me? And by the time I had booked, they only had the one spot. And as I checked checked Palo, I did check and it never lined up. So sorry, Mom. But she was a great sport.
So we mentioned Palo already. Does that mean we skipped main dining?
Yes.
And Palo was before our Pirate Night festivities then?
We did. So it was Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. We had that. I kind of like arranged it all. And then we did the pirate deck party, the Mickey's pirate deck party, which was wonderful. I mean, it's always cute. So we went and watched the show. It was great. But this was the time that our poor cruise director, Anthony, had to come on again to tell us we had a medical emergency and we were actually headed back to Fort Lauderdale. So our next day was a day at sea. So like, didn't really affect again our itinerary at all, but we would be cruising full speed ahead, so we would not get fireworks tonight. So there was the Mickey's earlier, and then there would still be like the late night pirate show, but there just wouldn't be pirate night fireworks, and they were postponed to the next night. We did the show, and then we went to Palo. I went to Palo with Mary Bad Bones in her full bandana, her face tattoo. They loved it.
How was our Palo experience?
It was lovely. I do love Palo for dinner. I have never done the prefix menu. We just do a la carte every time we're there because I think there's things we really like. We did get the lobster pasta this time, which I had never gotten before. But my friends were on the Fantasy at the same time, and they were at Palo the night before. So I was just like, okay, what'd you order that you really liked that I haven't had yet? And it was that. So it was like lobster, like an entire lobster tail over pappardelle, and it was delicious. It was one of the best pasta dishes I've had. I was very impressed. So I think the reason why I didn't like the lobster ravioli the night before was like, that was kind of my comparison. That's why I feel like it was so bad compared to Palo, you know? Well, it'll do it to us every single time. And we also got the sole because my mother had asked about that sole since the first cruise she ever took. So she got it then and she was like, but can we get the fish? And I was like, yes, we can. And I love that. That's such a great fish dish where it's such a great presentation and they come and like debone it at your table. It's just in like the copper pan. It's just such a great presentation. And I think it's like $30. Like it's something I would expect to be a lot more expensive for that entire experience you're getting. I understand you're on a cruise, but still.
Do you usually get appetizers as well?
Yes. She loves essentially I just let my mother get whatever she wants. We actually got the burrata pizza, the burrata and prosciutto pizza. That's her favorite. So we got that. We always get the angelotti and we switched this time to the lobster pasta because the angelotti is just like so good. But we said, we'll be back on a cruise. She's back on a cruise with me at the end of February. So we can get it then. It was like bargaining chips at this. And we did also get something else for dinner, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I don't know what else we got. We got another main dish. And then, of course, we had to do a souffle for dessert.
Do you split it?
Yeah, because honestly, I'm not the biggest dessert person, and I could take one of those down, but we had so much, and it was actually a good meal where I didn't feel like I was incredibly stuffed at the end, where I had to be like rolled out of palo. And that was like the first time I really felt that way. So I was embracing the I'm not overly stuffed aspect of it. But we got the amaretto one, and it was so good. Always a hit for me. I can't go wrong with it. But we had gotten yelled at the day before because we had so much at brunch that when dessert came around, I was like, we're going to skip dessert. And he was like, who are you people? And I was like, savory people. I'm so sorry.
But you have to get sometime the one that's like a custard with the little balls. It's so light.
Panna cotta.
Yes.
That is my favorite.
Okay. Writing this down in my notes. So when I'm on my cruise, and I will report back to the group.
I love the panna cotta.
Really
okay.
Well, moving on into the evening, what did you and Mary Badbones get into after?
We actually went to Pink and went to see the greatest hits of ABBA on piano. My mother, I saw that on the list and I said, Mary Badbones, she will want to be at this. So we spent the entire time. And it was actually nice that fireworks were canceled because we would have been late to that because of fireworks. And like we've seen the Jack, Sparrow show that I was like, if you want to see ABBA, we can go see ABBA. So we went and watched ABBA for the evening as we sailed back to Fort Lauderdale. And that is when I had my medical experience where we were sitting there enjoying the lovely tunes of ABBA when the lovely group next to us was talking about how they were the people from the medical emergency very loudly. I couldn't not hear it. We made it back to Fort Lauderdale at like 12:30 that night. And by the time got there around 11:30 and we just spun in circles for quite some time. I think they were having fun up on the bridge because we were just doing donuts right outside Fort Lauderdale, and then finally got in. And after we got in, I went to bed. And by the next morning, we were up to sea. So back on schedule. I have to say, again, Disney was faced with a lot of problems during this, and it didn't affect the sailing. So everybody that was kind of complaining in the Facebook group, I was like, but nothing was affected, really. Fireworks were postponed this night, but we did get them the next night. So I actually liked the fact that we went back to Fort Lauderdale. Because since we were on full steam ahead, my friends were on the Fantasy and said that that was the roughest night that they had. And we didn't really have that because we were moving so rapidly that we weren't kind of just sitting in it and festering. We were clearly sailing. So I do think that was a bonus point. This definitely was a rougher cruise, but overall, we were fine the whole time. But I do think that was a bonus of having to go back to Fort Lauderdale, is that the fact that we were full steam ahead and it wasn't as choppy.
So for your day at sea then, did you just kind of meander along the Florida coast?
Yes. They were like, hey, we're 20 miles from the coast all day long.
Did you ever try to turn on your cellular to see if it would connect? Because a lot of times I could connect to my cellular.
I should have, because I did buy the streaming Wi-Fi package and it was awful. But, at the same time, I really didn't want to connect to the cellular that day. So I didn't really want to turn on my phone if we're being frank, but I didn't see. But the last day at sea did mean there were churro waffles. So that's how we kicked off our morning. The best way to do it. And they have gluten-free ones too, right?
Yes, they do. And they are amazing.
Love this. Yeah, I asked our head server the night we were at Enchanted Garden, and he said that it was the last day. And he also said, though, if I wanted to pre-order any for the next 2 mornings and go to table service breakfast, I could do that. So that was also a nice little hack, but I ended up not doing it. I was like, I'll just take the last day. But everybody and their mother, including Mary Badbones, was there for churro waffles. It was definitely crowded, but I absolutely love Churro Waffle Day. If you're not going to that, what are you doing on Disney Cruise Line?
Right. And I assume on the Dream they were fried.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh God. Right now, Disney's got the churro waffle down. Mm-hmm. It is a lovely, lovely, lovely item.
I mean, that's all I wanted. I was like, I will have some fruit, but I really just came for the churro waffles.
Go ahead.
Somebody put ice cream on them, and I was like, that is the hack. Yeah. Next time I was like, and taking notes. Already ate too many of them.
Whipped cream, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Both would be good options.
Yeah.
Well, what a perfect day for your last day of sailing to be at sea. After we fill up on your churro waffles, what did we get up to for the day?
We did a lot of shopping because we were finally at sea and could really hit up everything. We had been delayed so many times that it worked best, and did some shopping. I shopped for pretty much everybody. I found the Nike hats. I like the good old Nike Disney hats, and they had them in both blue and white. So I was like, well, all are mine. Did some shopping, went back to trivia to try to win Disney Parks trivia and did not win yet again. So that was disappointing. And then we went to the deck to have lunch and I was like, look, it's not a cruise unless I get chicken tenders because chicken tenders hit different on Disney Cruise Line. However, it was coming off the European sailing and I don't know what in the Tyson they gave us, but it was not a Disney chicken tender. And I have never been so heartbroken in my life. Like she handed me the plate and I was like, thank you so much. And I was like, do I cry into my chicken tender? And so I went into like full blown panic where I was like, is this a thing? But I had remembered somebody saying to me that on European sailings, they had gotten different tenders. So I was like, maybe this is a European thing. I am texting my friends that are on the fantasy. I was like, I need a report right now. What is the deal with the chicken tenders? And they were like, as juicy as I always remember them. And I was like, well, I'm quoting you on the internet on that one. So that's awkward for you. But he said they were exactly the same. I think, again, it was just like it came from Europe situation where they have to get through all these non-Disney chicken tenders. But it was disappointing. I won't lie. I was like, back to the cantina we go. So
if y'all, again, could have seen Lake's face. I mean, Lake's face. I should get out my camera. I should be recording this because it's been fantastic from my angle. I mean,
Bethany has me dying today. Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
But the chicken tenders, I mean, I was in crisis. I was in crisis mode. The fact that it took me 3 days to get a chicken tender is wild. The cantina is what held that up. But when she presented it, I was like, looks like the dino nuggets that I used to get when I was a kid. Like, this is not a Disney chicken tender. And I need to file a complaint with somebody.
But did you try them? Were they at least okay?
No, they were awful. Especially when your expectation is a Disney chicken tender and then you get that like seems like it wasn't, but it could be microwaved as they look like the little like Tyson stuffed chicken nuggets I had as a kid that had that like weird cheese in them. Like that's what it looked like. And it did not do it for me. So I had to go to the cantina, which twist my arm, but I was disappointed. But I mean, I was like, oh my God, we have to go on another cruise for scientific purposes to make sure the chicken tenders are fine.
Well, good news. We have not heard any other reports of horrible chicken tenders. So cruise goers are enjoying the regular scheduled chicken tenders as of now.
Yeah, isolated. Thank goodness.
Well, what did we get up to next?
The Jack Jack baby race. I always say I do not rope drop things at the parks. I do not wait in line. I'll always buy like Lightning Lane. I will show up 30 minutes early to the Jack Jack baby race to get my prime spot. I have the spot that I like to stand in. And I like to pick my baby at that point. So I am analyzing the babies that are coming up. I feel like a college scout. I'm like analyzing the babies that are coming up. And I'm like, all right, who's going to win? Who am I putting my money on? My fake money, because there's no betting. But I have a favorite from the very beginning. And I had a favorite. And the baby races are so much fun. I did say if anybody came in costume, I would automatically favor them. Nobody came in costume. So I had Jack Jack last time. So the bar was high. But had a blast with that one. My baby came in second to a cheating family. That's fine. They lay down the rules and then people don't follow the rules. And I'm like,
high stakes world of baby racing here.
It is. But that's such like a fun thing. If you're ever on Disney Cruise and you have knock on to the Jack Jack baby race, why not? The audience is like wild. Everybody's screaming for babies crawling. Babies are so confused. Like the crowd goes wild. They're all like,
yeah. Blake did the baby race once and he was such a good crawler. So we thought Furry was going to win. But as soon as all these children or all the people started screaming, he lost his little mind. He was like,
I see that. It's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot for an adult. So, yeah.
Yeah. But my baby did make it to the final round. So
I think we need to start giving the babies names like in horse racing. And lucky number 7 takes the lead.
For starters, on the Wish when I went, they did that because the baby was from Alabama and they just kept calling her Alabama Slammer. That's all they referred to her as the whole time. They're like, our Alabama Slammer. I was like, clearly my favorite at this point. If we're going to call the baby Alabama Slammer, I'm going to root for the Alabama Slammer. And Alabama Slammer did win on that cruise. Always catch me at the baby races every single time. They're so much fun. And then we pretty much had a chill afternoon until that evening where we actually had fireworks before dinner. Fireworks were at like 7:15. They were early.
That's like my favorite time.
Yes, everything switched. So they actually moved. We had Beauty and the Beast that night, and that moved to 5:45 instead of 6:15. So we went at 5:45 to Beauty and the Beast, which was amazing. That show is so good. That actually might be like my favorite show on Disney Cruise Line. I think that's so well put together. We did get to the final scene where he transforms from the Beast into the Prince. And lights went down, technical difficulties, they cut the show. So we all know how it ends though. So we did miss the like ending of that. But overall, I absolutely loved Beauty and the Beast. I thought that was such a good show. And then we went and watched the fireworks, which were Disney Ever After, which I think is that what they do during the European sailings? Because that would kind of make sense to me because I don't think they do Pirate Night over there, right? Oh, no, they do.
They don't always do
depends.
fireworks
Okay.
because not all of the places they go will allow it.
Gotcha. But yeah, we had Disney Ever After fireworks, so they were not pirate themed. So it was a nice little change of something different, of like just Disney music. I think it finished with like When You Wish Upon a Star. So it was very cute and lovely. And it was kind of nice to get them done early so we could go watch piano playing that night. We had like a fully stacked evening of things that we wanted to do and just stay busy. So went to dinner at Royal
Palace Court.
Yeah, whatever it is there. It was like one of those two. And that dinner was good. It was fine. I really wanted to order room service. So I didn't order a ton of food from there that night to go back to the room and get some room service because we hadn't done that on that cruise yet. And I kind of like to order all the things. So
What room service did you order?
we did buffalo wings. I think we did mac and cheese. We did the cookie and some milk. You know, I feel like I like a warm cookie at the end of the day. Always a good one. And then we closed the night out by watching more piano music. Because what else would we do? The cruise out, essentially.
That was totally us on the Fantasy with the violinist. We would go and close her out like every single night at Ooh La La. And it was just...
Because they're good.
They are good. Did you by chance go by like the photo section or anything that night?
Probably did walk through it.
I just always feel like that last night, that is like the most hopping place on the ship.
It 100% is. Everybody's there trying to get photos. Also, like, I knew one of the people that were in the photos. Like, I was like walking through randomly, like, you know, the preview photos that they have in the photo center. I was like, I know them. And I did. They're like avid cruisers too, and they cruise with their baby. But I was like,
oh, okay.
I messaged them and I was like, you guys know you're like, I know you Disney cruise all the time, but like, you're the photo that like, strangely, I see your face there. But I loved it. But yeah, it is hopping that night. We have never done the photo package, so I can't say I'm the one that's over there.
Well, that takes us out to the end of the cruise. The next day is disembarkation, which means we are heading back towards Brightline. How was that whole process? I know we had some trouble getting on. Any problems getting off?
Off was perfection. From the time we actually skipped breakfast that morning, we just didn't have the desire to go sit down at a table service breakfast. And I'm not really a breakfast person, so we decided to just like go wait in the atrium for our luggage tag to be called. From the time our luggage tag got called to the time I was in my Uber was probably less than 12 minutes. So like easy getting off, checking off was easy. Grabbing our luggage was quick. And then like passport clear, like customs is so easy now because it's just facial recognition. So you just walked through that. And I called an Uber like XL because we had so many bags, and that was scheduled to arrive within 5 minutes. I didn't call it till we got outside and made it to the terminal with plenty of time, which I at first was kind of worried about. I had us on like a 10:20 back from Fort Lauderdale, and I was like, what took us an hour to get to the terminal last time? Am I pushing it close? And we were there almost an hour early this time. So like we had plenty of time. The original 9-something train actually left for Orlando while we were there. So we probably could have tried to like move trains if we wanted to, but I had friends that were coming down to get on the Dream that were also taking the Brightline that were like headed out that day. So I wanted to say hi to them. So I was like, we're fine. It's not a big deal. But got on the Brightline, took it back, and then it was easy. Again, I highly recommend it. I would take it again in a heartbeat. It's been a long day at the Orlando airport before heading back home. I spent like 6 hours at the Orlando airport at the Chili's to go.
Unacceptable.
I love their chips and salsa. Why do you do that? Come on. Their chips and salsa is so good. So, but overall, like it was a great cruise. It definitely had, like I said, I like to call it a dumpster fire because there literally was a dumpster fire on board. Everything ended up working so well, and we had such a good time that I probably wouldn't do a cruise again that was just getting off the transatlantic, because I do feel like the food quality overall was a little lower than I had seen previously on any Disney cruise. And like that includes like rotational dining. I do feel like the food quality wasn't as great, but overall we had a great time on the Dream, and I would go back on the Dream, but the Fantasy is my favorite.
Yeah, we've definitely had similar reports from people doing European sailings, as well as people coming back from the Australian sailings. where food standards can be much different and it can definitely change up your menus for us a little bit. So just something to think about and keep an eye on. Well, Bethany, thank you so much for coming on. You did mention you have another cruise book for February?
I do. I have end of February. I have 4 nights on the Fantasy that go to Castaway and Lighthouse, and I'm doing that again in April, at the end of April. The same on the Fantasy with Castaway and Lighthouse. So
Still missing out on that magic action, though.
I know. And then I got the Treasure now, so I got to really step on my game in 2025, I think. And I did 3 cruises this year, so, a lot when you're coming from the West Coast. I think the big goal is to get on the Wonder in Alaska next year.
Oh, yes.
That is what's on the docket of what we really want to do. I really want to get my dad on a cruise, and he's a retired cast member. So I was like, second a cast rate drops, we're going.
Nice.
That is a dream cruise.
Mhm.
Absolutely love Alaska. Well, Bethany, you are also pretty well known in the Disney sphere of influence. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me anywhere on the internet. I am Bethany Vinton. And you can also listen to my podcast, which is about Disney food and drink, which is the Main Street Dish. And we, every once in a while, will do a cruise line episode. My podcast co-hosts are on the April cruise with me. So there will definitely be some cruising there. And we might have to come back and report back as like a collective group, because I think that'd be fun. Because they're like,
sure.
we want to go on the DCL podcast. And I was like, got to get on a cruise. But they're avid cruisers. But yeah, we have a podcast every week. We talk about food in Disney World typically. So yeah.
You are all welcome back in April or after your April cruise. Before you leave, though, you're very thoughtful in how you navigate cruises and Disney World in your travels. And I just thought, do you have any first-timer cruise tips that you can think of, either relating to food or the lounges, or did you ever finish with who won your Dirty Martini? Was it just the Skyline the first night?
Oh, the pub was also really good. The pub there did a really good one. They had blue cheese stuffed olives there, which they did not have at Skyline. And I know that if I would have had that first, Skyline would have gone and got me the blue cheese olives, and not necessary. But the pub also made a very good Dirty Martini with blue cheese olives. The one at Palo was like, but the one at Meridian Bar was also very good. I feel like when you talk to the bartender, it just improves your quality of a good Dirty Martini. Sure. Like they get the vibe you're putting down. But yeah, I will say, I think Skyline was my favorite.
Okay. And then now, have you had any time to think about first timer tips?
Yeah, I think my biggest tip is, especially when it comes to food, like order everything. You can order as much as you want at dinner. You can order as much as you want at Palo Brunch. I always recommend, it's hard to get, and I understand, especially for first timers, but Palo Brunch, if you can get it, especially on a longer cruise where they offer it more than once. And I think the other thing, and we haven't talked about it since you guys said it was Prima Notte, I would say Manote.
Yes.
That does not book up that fast, honestly.
It's so good. And they handle allergies amazingly well and preferences, because I don't eat seafood. And I had the most beautiful substitution instead of seafood. I absolutely loved that meal. And then one of my friends doesn't eat meat, and she was on, and they were able to substitute her red meat course for something else as well. So just that experience is so good. And in my opinion, well worth the $100 by the time you factor in the gratuity.
Fully agreed. I think it's better than any tasting. Like, I didn't do any tastings this time. They've gotten so expensive. I mean, like when I first sailed, I think the first one was like $28, and now everything's like $50. And I just, it's not at its point that it was. That I think Prima Notte is a good one. So if I'm bringing my friends on the cruise in February for the first time, and we have Prima Notte on the list, because I like first timers, I know they're gonna like, that'll be a good one for them.
Yeah, it really just is perfect because you're getting the food tasting and the wine tasting, and it's really so reasonably priced for the time and the experience that you get in there. It is a first-class experience for sure.
So yeah, those are my like tips, especially foodie-wise, for people going on their first Disney cruise.
Well, Bethany, thank you so much for coming back on. We always appreciate hearing your thoughts when you come back from a cruise. Christy, you have anything else before we take us out?
Nope.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Christy, before we close out the show, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me all over the internet at Pack Your Pixie Dust. Yeah.
And you can find me, MouseGen, on YouTube and Instagram. And then, of course, you can follow us at DCL_podcast on Instagram, and DCL Podcast wherever else you find us on the social medias. Thank you all so much for listening. That's going to do it for this episode of the DCL Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Bethany for coming on and sharing her adventures on the Disney Dream. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our patrons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.